If you're a Mets fan, what else is there to say about this team? Tuesday night pretty much wrote the book on what the Mets have been all season long. It's their inability to get the big hit, which never ceases to amaze me just about every single day. Last night, you go into the 10th inning. You have Francisco Lindor up, who is finally breaking out of his slump from the first half. And even since May, even before he got hurt, he started to get back into the groove a little bit. But over his last 10, 11 games, he's been red hot. The Mets get first and third, 1 out. After working into and out of trouble in the top of the 10th, all he have to do is pretty much bunt, fly ball, game over. And of course, it's a 3-3-2-5 double play. Something that you can't even write up. Something that isn't even fathomable. The Mets managed to do. And the managing last night, I mean, Yankee fans, if you're watching, if you're listening, if you think that Aaron Boone is a bad in-game manager, I want you to watch what the Mets do, because Luis Rojas has had some very, very bad moves. Taking Marcus Stroman out after 89 pitches. I mean, what else can you ask for Marcus Stroman all year? Aside from Jacob deGrom, who has not pitched in over 2 months, Stroman has not only been your best pitcher, he's been your most consistent pitcher. There are only 3 pitchers this year with 23 starts allowing 2 runs or less. And that is Marcus Stroman, Max Scherzer, and Walker Buehler. Scherzer and Buehler are probably the 2 favorites to win the NL Cy Young Award this year. Stroman is right up with those guys. Where is the urgency with less than 20 games to go? And what makes this even worse is the fact that the Mets had just about everything go right for them heading into Tuesday night's game. Everyone that they needed to lose, lost. They had a chance to get 2.5 games out of a wildcard spot, something that didn't even seem imaginable a month ago. The Mets were given a gift, wrapped up, and they choked it away. Not only with their inability to hit the ball, but bad managing and no urgency. Luis Rojas is taking pitchers out way too early every time. And I'm sorry, but bottom of the 11th, they got the winning run at the plate. They had bases loaded. And they brought in Albert Almora because he's a righty going up against a lefty. And that's where Luis Rojas loses me, because there are some days where he's so obsessed with the lefty-righty matchup. A couple of weeks ago against the Marlins, he talked about it until his face turned blue that Patrick Mazeika, a guy who wears number 76, was pinch hitting for James McCann, who was in the first year of a 4-year contract. And that was supposed to be the right move a couple weeks ago. And Mazeika grounded back out to the pitcher because the Marlins pitcher had a good sinker that was good against righties, so they wanted to bring in the lefty. But then, the next day, James McCann stayed in the game when there were several good lefties. A couple of weeks ago, in that doubleheader in Washington, when they were winning 9-0, Washington came all the way back. Lindor hit the game-winning home run. What do they do the next day? They sit Javier Baez and Francisco Lindor, who both homered not even 3 hours beforehand. There's no urgency with this team. And Luis Rojas goes, well, it's the performance staff, it's me, and it's the players. First of all, if any player is asking for breaks in September, I don't want them on my team. I don't care how good they are. And I give Francisco Lindor and Javier Baez a lot of credit for turning this around after the whole booing fiasco, because they've been playing lights-out baseball over the last couple of weeks. But this performance staff, who clearly is not watching many performances, thinks that their best players should be sitting the bench in September, and Luis Rojas agrees. I understand that the role of the manager has changed a lot in the last 3 years. Managers are tied to whatever the front office says, and performance staffs, which is complete crap. The performance staff needs to look at the performance. Javier Baez and Francisco Lindor homered 3 hours ago. And guess what happened? They lost. Who knows what would happen if red-hot hitters started the game. Javier Baez last night, game-tying home run, 3 weeks after everyone wanted him gone because all he did was strike out and boo his own fans. But I gotta give credit to Baez because he's turned it around. Lindor has turned it around. But there's no urgency by the players and especially by the manager. Aaron Loop, what? Your best reliever goes 10 pitches? Edwin Diaz can barely throw 1 inning. And I like Edwin Diaz. I think he has dominant stuff. We know that his struggles are very bad. But come on. 89 pitches from your best pitcher on September 14th? Marcus Stroman has been pulled way too early, way too many times. And I'm a fan of analytics. I think that it has a place in the game. But sometimes you have to have a feel for what's going on. And it's clear that he doesn't. I can't get over the fact that Albert Almora was actually the first guy off the bench when a base hit could have won the game. And you had Luis Guillorme on the bench. Albert Almora has 6 hits on the year. So whatever analytics you have, all the analytics tell me is that Albert Almora stinks. Why is he up in that situation? This has been the most disappointing Mets season I've seen in a long time. Now, granted, the Mets are usually supposed to be disappointing because it's the Mets. But I'd say heading into maybe 2017 and even 2018, because 2018 2018, if you remember, they started out 11-1. They had Syndergaard and DeGrom. 2017 too, they had just come off of back-to-back postseason appearances. But this season, you get the new owner, you get the big splash of the trade market, probably the biggest trade in the offseason, and you are 2 games under 500 in the worst division in baseball. You led the division for 3 months. And what happens to the Atlanta Braves? They lose probably a top 4 player in all of baseball in Ronald Acuna Jr. He tears his ACL. They could have rolled over and died. Where are the Braves now? Leading the division. The Phillies, whose bullpen can't get anybody out. Didi Gregorius has been a disappointment. Now, granted, Bryce Harper might be the MVP this year, but that bullpen, you let them overtake you in the standings. You're losing series to the Miami Marlins. Roster-wise, you pretty much look at 3 guys, in my opinion. You look at Michael Conforto, who has turned it around over the last few weeks, but Jeff McNeil has been horrible, and Dominic Smith is not good. McNeil in his last 40-somewhat games has an OPS of, 540? Tom Smith was a top 15 MVP candidate last year. He can't hit the ball anymore. You know what's amazing? Since August 1st, the Mets have the 7th worst slugging percentage in all of baseball, and that was with a Pete Alonso who was red hot at one point for a good stretch of time. That's with the recent power surge by Francisco Lindor. That's with Javier Baez tearing the cover off the ball over the last couple of weeks. So that means that the other 5 guys in the lineup that aren't pitchers are not doing the job. And Brandon Nimmo's injury hurts a lot more than people realize, but no one else is doing their job. No one on the roster is doing their job offensively, and the manager decides to coddle all of his arms. Quite frankly, the pitching is the reason why the Mets are even in this spot in the first place, because Tyler McGill has been a nice surprise. Taijuan Walker was an all-star despite his inconsistencies in the second half. Marcus Stroman is going to be a Cy Young candidate. He's going to get votes. He'll probably be top 10. And even Rich Hill, I think in every single one of his starts except 1, he's allowed less than 4 earned runs. One would think that winning 2 of 3 to the Yankees would be a nice little momentum push. How do they respond? Losing 7-0 to St. Louis. Adam Wainwright just kills them again. And then they lose a heartbreaker in the 11th, a game that was basically handed to them. And moving up in the standings was basically handed to them. But they use Jerry's Familia. They don't extend Edwin Diaz. They don't extend Aaron Loop. They don't extend Marcus Stroman. I mean, your best pitcher goes 6 innings because all of a sudden ups is a thing? No one had ever heard of what an up was before this year. I never heard of it. Then on opening day, Luis Rojas wouldn't let Jacob deGrom go a 7th inning because he had 6 ups. It's certainly looking like the offseason is quickly approaching in Queens, and the Mets clearly have a lot of work to do. And even if we didn't see it last year, it's becoming quite clear that Luis Rojas is a little bit out of his league. And I feel bad for him because he's probably tied down to a lot of front office decisions by Sandy Alderson, by Zach Scott before he was arrested, by the new and improved analytic department. I get it. I feel bad for a lot of managers because they are simply yes men who have to go in front of the media and pretty much explain the front office's decisions for them. I get it. I feel bad for Rojas. But I can't imagine that every single one of these decisions is strictly by the front office. I would imagine that he has some sort of feel for it. And last night he had no feel. Again, is that all performance staff? Maybe. But knowing that your job is probably in jeopardy, it was in jeopardy last year in a 60-game season. If I'm a manager, if I think I'm going to go down, I'm going to go down with what I think works. And if that was his case, good for him, but it wasn't the right move. And quite frankly, Luis Rojas has not had a lot of moves. And you guys hear me say with Aaron Boone, again, I don't think that blaming the manager for everything is just the right way to go about things. I think manager blaming, I think the MLB manager is a thankless job. You never get credit when anything works, but if the best closer in the game blows it in the 9th inning, it's the manager's fault. I've said it before, I'll say it here. I just think that it's an excuse for people to act like they really know a lot of baseball. But if we're taking things at face value and Luis Rojas decisions are Luis Rojas decisions, they've been very, very bad. Especially when there's seemingly a much better move that could have been made. And that's not a Monday morning quarterback. That's not an armchair manager. Luis Rojas has numbers right in front of him. Luis Guillorme is a decent hitter against both righties and lefties. Albert Almora is not a Major League Baseball player at all. So you can sit here and say after the fact that Luis Rojas should have done this, Guillorme should have hit, Stroman should have went in this. We all can be an armchair manager, but there have been plenty of moves by Luis Rojas where you are legitimately scratching your head as it's happening. And last night, there were a lot of them.